The General Mugisha Muntu, a founder of the Alliance for National Transformation, a former party president of the Forum for Democratic Change. He was also a former army commander of the Uganda People's Defense Forces. All those details are known to us and the entire audience. But also he ran in the last election, the 2021 presidential election, in ANT's debut appearance in the national electoral cycle. Ladies and gentlemen, I welcome General Mugisha Muntu to greet the audience and the viewership, and we'll be moving in right away. General.
Thank you, Kansiime, for hosting me today. Good evening, dear viewers. We thank you for putting aside time to be part of this conversation. Yep.
Thank you very much, General. We'll be going right into the gist of why we are here. We will start from the most recent experience of what's going on in the NRM. Backstage, we were discussing bits and pieces of it. What are your feelings on the NRM primaries, 72,000 village structures? What are your feelings on what is happening in the primaries at the moment? It was marred with a couple of violent situations in places like Zimbabwe. What are your feelings on what's going on?
I don't have this full story yet. The feedback from all over the country. Yes, there were areas which experienced violence in the process of their primaries. I think I saw like Zimbabwe, Isinjiro, looks like in Ruwero, Ngomas areas. I don't know whether it is going to be like the outcomes of the 2021 primaries, because in those primaries, I recall, they had about 400 plus petitions. I don't know whether they learned lessons from that and rectified the weaknesses in the system and they put it right. I don't know. We'll wait and see the outcomes eventually. But overall, it's a con game. There is no party. If it's not dependent on national resources like NRM does, that would run primaries of that nature. And they will experience it when they're out of power. The logistical and financial implications of having to run primaries like that. If NRM wasn't dependent on our taxpayers' money, they wouldn't be able to do that. But they'll get to know when they're out of power, which I would like to believe down the road, soon, they will know that you cannot run primaries of that nature. However, even for those who are in NRM, we'll wait and see those who come fresh out of their primaries. I would like to believe that a significant number of them know for sure that there isn't much they are going to change. Like the many who have been in parliament wouldn't really change much because every subsequent parliament happens to be weaker than the one before. The most, I think the parliament which really had strong leaders was the 6th and 7th. Subsequent to that, it's kept on getting more and more watered down in terms of leadership, in terms of the culture itself. I would like to believe that right now, this primary they are in, for those who go ahead to make it beyond the general elections, I highly doubt whether they're going to be better than this parliament that is closing early next year. I think it's the 11th. Because you bump into quite a number of them when you ask them, out of 10 who've been running, those who believe in NRM and those who believe in what is happening in the country right now, you can't get more than 2, 3. Which means that the 7 or 8 are there simply because there is a belief that when you go through NRM primaries, you'll get heavy funding after that in the general elections, and you'll also benefit from the manipulations of the regime through the use of the national state security apparatus. They'll be operating in your favor, and also the money that they are given, again, which is taxpayers' money. So many of them are attracted to go there because of that, but it's not as if they are going there to change much. And as the saying goes, a fish rots from the top. Until the top is changed, whatever changes happen down, I don't think they're going to mean much. But it's good that this exercise has ended, so let's now roll out and go to the general elections. Because we're also organizing, and one hopes that the population itself recognizes where their interests lie and how they can be fulfilled. Because many of them are old, they're mature, they need to know the experiences of the past, most of the areas which massively turn out or where manipulations happen because of money, and people get influenced to return NRM MPs. The population needs to look at the performance, for example, of the last parliament. Are they satisfied with the performance? If they are not satisfied, they should know that the only way out of this mess is to support the change or the forces of change in the opposition parties, do analysis of the parties that are in the opposition, and then support our candidates. So we can change the environment in this country with the support of the population in a peaceful way. Because when they don't do that, then they'll be participating voluntarily and consciously in what could happen down the road. Because for us, keep on getting, a parliament full of NRM, LOC5s, LOC3s, and yet the corruption which is so deep, the misallocation of resources, the stealing of money, and therefore people don't get services. And they keep on, being aggrieved. And then there is a repression from the regime because they don't want to hear challenging thoughts or alternatives. And that tension keeps on building up, further and further. Many times it leads to an open crisis, which we hope really we don't take that direction. But if we were to do so, if eventually there was an implosion in this country, the population would need to know that they would have participated in what would have happened. Because they should be conscious. They should know that, to direct the future, to shape it the way they desire. Why do they keep on voting in people whom they know are not going to participate in changing the status quo in a peaceful way? So the population should be conscious of that. Therefore, change the pattern. Not to be influenced by money, also not to fear. Because it's a secret ballot. And normally when you vote overwhelmingly in an area, yes, the regime can try to tamper with the results, but the last elections, for example, we saw them being eliminated in Buganda and in Busoga, at least at the presidential level. So even other areas need to know that. They should not expect that someone is going to come from anywhere and do things for them. They must participate in shaping the future that they desire to get into.
Thank you, General. And I think for me that raises the question on, are we hiding our heads in the sand? Because when you look at the numbers for the NRM primaries, for instance, they had 72,000 village polling stations, so to say.
Yes.
So you have the NRM represented in 72,000 villages.
That's even more than the 35 of the Electoral Commission.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have them claiming that they have a register of 18 million voters.
That's the total number of voters.
Of registered voters in the country.
Yes.
So again, yes, the irony is notwithstanding, are we refusing to acknowledge that the NRM is actually still a mass party and that we are failing to recognize the weaknesses within the opposition structures? For instance, you are on record and you are famous for preaching the gospel of grassroots party structures.
Yeah.
But you have had about 5 years now since you parted ways with your colleagues in the Forum for Democratic Change. Have you built enough structures within the NT? Does the NT or anyone who believes in the NT have a chance? Do they have a chance to believe, or do they have a chance to take when the general elections come that these structures are sufficient? Or are we actually just ignoring the fact that because of state apparatus, as you noted, because of the resources of the regime, there is not a way you can dislodge the movement because it is still a mass party?
You see, there are two challenges that we are faced with as a people, as a country. What has just happened, and what has happened a number of times, is a massive con game rooted in deception. First challenge is leaders. Because the masses of people, you know, they are calling it a mass party. Those masses, most times, when they are not well led, when those who are meant to be leaders, basically shepherds, it's like sheep. Mm. If a shepherd starves the sheep, uses the resources which are meant to feed the sheep, steals money which is supposed to be for water for the sheep, money for salt for the sheep, can't treat the sheep. But somehow, through, like in this particular case, influencing the minds of the people, not to see that for them to get out of that kind of situation, that they need to change shepherds. So now the shepherd who's been stealing salt at the end comes now with salt and starts distributing it. People forget the whole 5 years. They want to live for today. That's one of the problems.
Yes. So
we have problems with the leaders, those who are meant to give leadership in the elite, from the elite class, because normally that's where they are drawn from, are broken down themselves. They have also chosen, rather than to fight long term, to simply survive. They are more or less influenced by their desires for today. And when the population is not led, therefore, they also play a survival game. And in the process, like now, I mean, they've been getting handouts from most of those who've been running. And they also get handouts during general elections. And most likely, well, in the past, this time, as we keep on, disseminating information, trying to conscientize them, one hopes that they can shift in their thinking, because that happens also. We've seen it happen before, and we hope that's what will happen even this time around. But by the patterns of the past, when they are influenced by their needs of today, and therefore are overwhelmed by the literal money which they are thrown to them, 1,000 shillings, 2,000 shillings. Those who are coordinators at a higher level, some of them 10,000, others maybe 50,000. Then the topmost, those can get a few millions here and there. They go along. And then for 5 years, they lack services. Many, many, many areas. got hospitals, no drugs. There's no healthcare system that really caters for those who don't have money of their own for treatment. And most of I'd like to believe out of 10 people, possibly about 7, if they get a bill for the medical care, like is 10 million, I'd like to believe about 7 or 8 can't afford to pay that kind of money.
Yes.
So it's only maybe 2 who will afford. But the people down there who are voting are not asking themselves that question because they want money for today. And then the leaders who could organize them, motivate them, and direct them to changing the status quo so that they can get better services for the taxes that they pay. When the leaders also compromised, you get that kind of situation. And when that kind of situation is sustained through fear, or indeed through monetary influence, the experience we have had in many other parts of the country, almost, there's always an implosion. So how to break out of that? There have to be people who keep pointing out that over and over, over and over. And then hopefully there can be people who will wake up to that fact and see how they can influence a situation in a different way, like now in an election. Now, if they don't do that, basically we will continue moving towards that point when there can be an implosion, inevitably, which happens. So the other issue that we'll have to keep raising is, look, people who really want to see change and change in a smooth way, don't give up, even when you look at the situation as it is. Keep at it. Invest in those who stand for the alternative governance, like we are. Look for a party which you believe in, to which you subscribe in terms of ideals, in terms of principles and objectives, in terms of values. If you find that a party has got what resonates with you, invest into it. You ask a question, said 5 years. Yes, politics requires resources and logistics. We put in our effort to the extent, to the full extent that is humanly possible. And we went to areas within the means that we had. But there's a limitation of resources. First, we don't get financing from the consolidated fund. We didn't have any member of parliament, this particular parliament.
And now the Minister of Justice has said you must be a member of IPOD to get funding.
Well, they want those who are in parliament to bow to the wishes of the regime. We are not there, so that's not something that they're able to suck us into. But it is wrong, because parties should remain with the independence to determine what to do.
Yes.
But then coercion being the style that they use, they're going to try to coerce those parties. I don't know what the parties are going to do. That's where the citizenry comes in. Because like for us, if we had resources, there is no way we would not have completed the whole country. And all the areas went sub-county level. It was worth it, because wherever we would get people who would listen to our message, the people with whom the message resonates, and then we would get those who would join the party. Now, people are used to massive, turn-ups, mostly like rallies, which to us we weren't caring about when we were building. That comes during campaigns. Even when you have campaigns at the end, when you're going to an electoral exercise, you need to have the infrastructure. And that infrastructure, there are not many people, because in our case as a party, we need just 23. At the village, at the parish, at the sub-county, district, and national. Not just the numbers. even those 23, would be looking for people who care for their people, for communities that they come from, in which case whom they'll be giving leadership, and also care about the country. Even in areas where you don't get 23, because even if you get just 10 at a village, at a parish, at the sub-county level, constituency and district, that becomes the focal point, the fulcrum around which party activities can be conducted. And they can be effective agents of influence, actually more than us who are at the national level. That's what we would keep telling them. Because you can imagine, if you have like 10 good men and women who fully understand the principles, the objectives, and the ideas and values the party stands for, and are able to communicate that. They live with these communities. They're the ones who are in the trading centers, they're the ones who attend weddings, they're the ones who attend burials, they're the ones who are in churches and mosques. When they are effective and well trained, they'll be looking for opportunities and they'll be speaking. That's how you change society, downward up. Now imagine at the national level, even if you have leaders at the national level who go down the grassroots, there are 11,000 parishes. There are 72,000 villages. There is no way you can have the people at the national level, for example, go to 72,000 villages. It's just almost, because if you get 72,000, divide by 360, the number of days, and then you find if there is one team that is supposed to go around, it will be more than 10, 15 years for them to reach every village. Same thing parish. But those who are the parish and sub-county is about 2,000 something. Maybe now someone told me who checked out, I think they have closed 2,800 from what I understand. The people who are there and constantly in touch with the population are the agents of influence for an organization. That's why we'll keep focused on that. 2, they would become the agents of transformation once a party gets into power. They're the ones, once they are well trained and live the values of the organization, they are the face of the organization because they are the ones constantly in touch with the population. So the question is the internal communication framework that you establish, or channels of communication that you establish, to ensure that you get to know at the national level what is on the ground at the village, parish, sub-county level. And then you discuss, one, the challenges on the ground and the views that come therefrom. You process that, you discuss, you determine decisions that, you determine the solutions to those challenges, and then you communicate them down. And then once you communicate them down, that's what the leaders at that level who go to those places that I've talked about, burials, churches, mosques, weddings, and all areas where they go, fundraisings, and they keep communicating those messages. That's the only way to transform a society. We're still focused on that. We have stopped it now because we are going to the electoral process. Now we'll be communicating through candidates and the areas where we had those leaders through the leaders. And then immediately after elections, we continue with the exercise. It is our intention to build a party which is rooted at the grassroots level. That's one thing that we are not going to let up on.
Thank you.
Much as we had impediments because of resources, again, very soon we'll be reaching out to the citizenry, talking to them, to see if they recognize that they are the ones who can shape the future in which they want to live. And therefore get on board, support the parties in terms of financing. Because even as we go into election, the parties are going to be having candidates. The NRM candidates are going to be financed by the regime from our taxes. Everybody is going to finance NRM. Because right now we don't have any alternative to that. Because the institutions that would be able to check abuses of power, abuses of how taxpayers' money is used have been so weakened and compromised, we have nothing we can do about it as of now. So they use our taxes to support their candidates. So to change that, the population needs to understand that, okay, so how do we change that? Then support us. Those whom you believe have the capability, have the focus, have the discipline, one, to dismantle the regime, but also when they take power, to do things different. And that's why we would need to field candidates at local levels so we can take the grassroots and also at the parliamentary level so that we can influence decision making at the parliamentary level. And that's why we need candidates, those with whom our message resonates, to get on our ticket, even in the areas where we hadn't reached. And then from the financing from the population, because people at times don't even understand the magnitude of what they can do. Because they look at themselves as individuals. Someone says, what can I do? No, the cumulative effect of smaller contributions can be huge. I don't want to use an example of, a person putting in 10,000 a month. 10,000, I think, is a cost of about 3 beers, if I'm not mistaken. And the elite in this country, if I may use the example of beers, who take beers. If to sacrifice 3 beers in one day for the whole month and say, let me put this 10,000 in this party or that party or that party. If you get 100,000, and I know the elite in this country who can afford to put that kind of money into whatever, can be maybe roughly about $1 million. So we're talking about 10% of that. They put 10,000. You put 10,000, 100,000 in a party like NT, that's 1 billion. If we're getting that kind of financing on a monthly basis, we, like in the last 3-4 years, would really have completely cut this regime at the grassroots level. Completely. Would dismantle it. But also people need to know that we need to build ourselves. Because if the future is going to be shaped in a positive direction, you need a party which organizes itself, attracts good men and women who know that even when they're in power, they must be held accountable. And therefore it is incumbent upon them to put systems of accountability in place. That they must establish and build family, a foundation for good governance, justice, fairness, equality before the law, and utilization of national resources in building the economy in its different sectors: agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, for logistical purposes, to support all those sectors, to invest in social services, health sector, educational sector, create jobs. Those are challenges. The only way those challenges can be met is to have responsible men and women who get into an organization. For them to do that, the party must organize, must attract them, must communicate, must brand, must market. All that requires resources. So, those who want to live in a better future, you have to invest. Like you invest money in different things. Invest money in churches, invest money in mosques. You give support those who are going to wed. You give support those who are burying. Politics is at the core of our existence. It's an inescapable fact. You want a better future, you have to invest into it. You can't escape that. You don't do that, there's a gap. The Bafere remain the overwhelming actors in the political processes. And they do what they always do. It impacts on you negatively. And then you cry from morning until evening, one day, 1 week, 1 month, over and over. What kind of country do you want us to be in? One, not to understand that you are living in a contradiction. You want a better future, but you don't want to finance it or to invest into it. So how do you intend to get out of it? It's a dilemma. But we can only keep speaking. We can't coerce anybody. We cannot do much about it other than to keep pointing out this factor over and over. And as the Bible says, whatever man sows, so shall he reap.
Thank you, General. That message is quite powerful and clarifying on what, because sometimes Ugandans ask the question, what can we do? And I like that you mentioned that the cumulative effect of individual contributions can be massive. Yes. And I think that's a direction that whether you support the Alliance for National Transformation or the National Unity Platform or the Forum for Democratic
whatever party
Change,
you support,
that you need to invest in the future.
But you can see there are other factors why the population should really support parties, in as far as I'm concerned. The other issue is, how on earth will you even know how to trust us? Because whatever we do, for example, once money is raised, the manner in which we utilize it, the manner in which we account for it, would indicate that we are either responsible or irresponsible in managing resources. If we would not be able to manage little, how on earth would you expect us to manage the much that we would find in government? People don't seem to understand. The governance is not like running a market. The temptations are overwhelming. If, for example, you can't manage, say, if you raise 1 billion for us every month and you can't manage it well and account for it, and then suddenly you're going to manage 1 trillion. People don't seem to understand. So to me, if the population wakes up that fact, it's not only for today, but even as we go in future, then they would be able to say, okay, these people are disciplined. We're giving them resources, and this is how they're utilizing those resources. Therefore, we can trust that even when they get into power, this is how they manage our taxes. That's the second aspect. The third aspect, people seem to not understand that we are not an island. We are part of the global dynamics. Not only us in Uganda, but basically the whole African continent. People who should be scanning what is happening on a global scale, literally all other developed, countries and continents are looking at Africa because we have huge amounts of natural resources which are required by others. Mm. So if you don't invest in building parties which one recognize that, and therefore would be a bulwark against anybody from outside who would want to manipulate our governments because they want weak governments. Weak governments are easy to manipulate. And resources to be taken, almost at, I saw like the example which is now become openly pronounced. Like Niger. Niger, they were buying a ton of uranium, if I recall correctly, around $12 per ton of uranium from Niger by France. When Niger, the last about 2, 3, 4 years ago, I think there was a coup, they reversed that. They are selling uranium now, a ton at $200. You can imagine the magnitude.
Mm. That's a fundamental difference.
Yes. And there are many areas. So if we don't invest in building strong parties, mostly the elite, because the peasant wouldn't understand all this. But people who've gone to school, what did you study in school? If you can't understand the global dynamics, if you don't understand the existential threat, there is no free lunch in this world. As he said, you never get what you deserve. You get what you negotiate for. Young people are crying out for jobs. How will jobs be created unless there are robust economies? How will there be robust economies unless there are people who even understand how to create an environment in which jobs can be created? How will they be there unless they are well organized? How will they be well organized unless there is financing from the very population that wants to shape a better future? How can we live a disconnected life? We desire better things, but we don't understand how even to get those better things. There are many countries around the world that are looking for raw materials. And we are still at that level, producing raw materials for the rest of the world. And I can tell you that many would want to see us remain weak. General Museveni has failed in one thing, to strengthen this nation. They are going to write a manifesto and put their kilometers of roads which they have made, put there how many bridges, put there how many households have got clean water, how many have got electricity. That is crap. Every society needs that. But those should be facilitating a people who are strong. So even if you do all that, when the people are weak, you have positioned them for destruction. Because weak people make weak nations. Weak nations become vulnerable to external forces. So when you weaken people because of your own domestic considerations and calculations, because you want to dominate them, but you have weakened them, and he's on his way out. I've said this before. I'll keep repeating it until hopefully it sinks. You leave the people who are that vulnerable, because if you can buy people 1,000 shillings, 5,000 shillings, and the leaders at 1 million, the members of parliament 100 million. What about that one who wants you to be weak so that they can go and buy whatever you have at like they were doing in Niger? If you don't have strong men and women in an organized manner, in this case parties, and they're in government, and they're able to withstand that manipulation from the outside, you are vulnerable. If you are vulnerable to 100 million shillings, you're going to be even more vulnerable to $500,000 or $1 million. And then you get people rushing to run on the movement ticket. What kind of human beings do we have? Not just in this country, but when you look even across,
General,
the people who want to influence the future have to stand up.
General, I'm afraid I have to cut you short on that passionate imploration of the people. We just need to move to the next segment for the sake of time. I'd like to encourage our viewers and listeners to call in the studio in the next few minutes. We'll be taking calls. Our numbers for the studio line are 0700 999 054, 0700 999 054, 079 11 46762. I repeat, for the Airtel 0700 999 054, for MTN 079 11 46762. Please feel free to call in and we will take some of those calls and ask General some questions at the top of the hour. But I just want to move on to something else. As we've been handling the issue of structures and why people should invest in the party and parties, other parties across the board, I'd like us to discuss the question of opposition unity, General. Recently, the NT signed a memorandum of understanding with PFF, which is affiliated, of course, to retired Colonel Dr. Chiza Besigye. There's a lot of questions around that, of course, because the members of PFF are largely former members of the FDC, people with whom you, in a sense, broke ranks. What is the thinking in that MOU? What has changed? Why should people believe that you guys can work together now? What's happening that we need to consider in terms of opposition unity? And perhaps it will then lead to the next question in that sense as well. Is there a hope of the ANT working with the National Unity Platform at the grand scale?
One, we more or less came to an understanding between Alliance for National Transformation and PFF and signed a memorandum of understanding around the electoral process with a view to exploit the possibilities of fielding one candidate at every level, so that wherever NT has a candidate and is fielded, and if PFF has a candidate, then the PFF candidate would stand down. In other cases where PFF candidate can run and an NT's candidate can stand down, where there are two. But where there is only NT, the NT would go ahead and run. Where there is only PFF, PFF would go ahead and run. We are putting mechanisms in place by the CGC, or Common Ground Council, where there are 8 representatives from each side. And then would work together in areas of how to influence the electoral process. We'll be meeting with the Electoral Commission and other agencies that work in the area related to elections to see how we can influence the direction of this electoral cycle. Also to work together to apply common effort in vote protection. And then we'll do a review after that, which would determine in what other areas we could work on. Now the past is the past. We had contradictions in terms of strategy. To us, we believed that even if you have disagreements, even if you reach a point of separation, like there was separation, if you find that at this point in time the challenges facing the country are so huge, and also recognizing that the country first is larger than the parties, the country is larger than us as individuals, the interests of the people are paramount. And two, learning lessons from the past. One, we don't think that disagreements should lead to hostility between individuals or even between parties. And therefore, it's a mature way to do things. And that's why we reached this memorandum of understanding. And as they say, the taste of the pudding is in the eating, because there are two sides. One, what we have desired to do, and the side of the population. So what I think the population needs to do is give us the benefit of doubt, because we know it's incumbent upon us to prove whether what we are doing is simply opportunistic or whether it is real. And we know if we don't midwife this effort to its logical, successful end, then we'll be judged by time. We know that. And therefore, we didn't rush into anything. We carefully discussed these issues and reached a consensus on the things that we need to do as of now. Even in the future, any other effort beyond what we are involved in now will be carefully considered and will have the benefit of hindsight, since we have gone through this whole process. Where we may make errors, for us to know that yes, to err is human, but to apply our minds to wherever there would have been areas of weakness, resolve them, and keep moving. That's how all organizations which succeed, that's what they do, even countries. So time is going to prove us, and I believe they'll find that the benefit of doubt, for those who give the benefit of doubt to us, would not have been misplaced. Two, having now come into an MOU with ANT and PFF, while in the past we were separately in touch with NUP. So now we will continue being in touch with it jointly and explore areas of possible cooperation, where we find areas where we can apply effort on the basis of a common ground. We will keep discussing with NUP. And there were mistakes made in the past. I have pointed this out before. Let me point it out again. In the past, I think a number of our colleagues in the political class, more so on the opposition side, were always focused on achieving 100% of whatever they would be negotiating. I have been in many attempts in the past. My view then, as it is now, is that you don't have to agree on 100%. That if you have 5 potential areas of cooperation, if you don't agree on 2, go with the 3. But ensure that you put in place mechanisms that enable you to work on the 3 without the 2 where you have not agreed, causing you strife. In my own estimation, it could have been achieved in the past, but we didn't apply it. I believe it can be achieved now. My hope is that we give it attention and also apply our effort to it. Even if you don't agree on 3 and you agree on 2, go with the 2.
General, I think the question
Yes.
that Ugandans want you to answer, and I see it a lot on social media platforms,
Yes.
There is a general feeling, especially among the elite.
Yes.
Again, social media does not represent even perhaps a quarter of the population.
Of the population, yes.
But it gives a good view of the elite thinking.
Yes.
The question is,
Yes.
in a situation where you're put in a room
Yes.
with Mr. Robert Chagulanyi,
Yes.
also known as Bobby Wine,
Yes.
because I think right now, together with Dr. Besigye, you're the 3 main opposition actors. Would you agree to not run in a presidential election in favor of Bobby Wine?
You see, the issue is,
Because I think that's the question many Ugandans are asking.
best case scenario, one hopes that would happen. But suppose it doesn't happen. Does that mean that you don't cooperate? Because in as far as I'm concerned, parties are not individuals. Parties go beyond individuals. 2, is it the only factor?
Perhaps the major factor.
Because 1, there's a factor of candidates. The top candidates and the lower candidates.
Yes.
2, there is a factor of communications. How do you coordinate communications? Because you have the same objective, removing a regime. There are areas where you can harmonize message. All of you facing your adversary, the one you want to remove. There is the area of shaping the environment. How do you interact with all agencies with the purpose to influence the operational environment in which the electoral process is going to be, conducted. 3, there is vote protection. You have got 35,000 polling stations where you are going to have agents. Now you may find that there are many areas where maybe if you are 3 parties, where you all may have. But there may be other areas where 2 may have and 1 doesn't have. There may also be other areas where 1 has and the 2 don't have. There can also be other areas where maybe you may find that none of the 3 have. But you can pay attention to that and apply your organizational capabilities around that area and be able to build very fast and have agents in those areas. That can be an area of focus and you work on it. Now, if you are able to have a common understanding and reach a consensus on all the 3, have 1 presidential candidate, work together, or even on the lower levels, work together on communications, work together on relations on influencing the agencies involved in the electoral process, and vote protection. You agree on all the four. Perfect. That's the perfect case scenario. But suppose you don't agree, for example, on the presidential level. So, does that mean that you just fall apart? I don't believe in that myself. Because you can have 2, even 3 presidential candidates running, but for example, you can work together in how to protect votes all around. So I simply can't understand. I mean, my background is in the army. You can have more than one army fighting against a common adversary. But you would have to sit and ensure that there is each force that is deployed operates on its own axis. There's a central axis, there's the left flank, the right flank, the left flank, and you have communications. And you're advancing against a common adversary. It happens. In politics, it happens. It has happened in quite a number of countries. The only problem here, I think, has been we've never applied our minds to that. So the case that you have failed to get one candidate, for example, and that therefore you should break down does not make sense to me at all.
But General, in the past?
Yes, because, look, you also need to factor in some factors. I mean, to put in perspective certain factors. Suppose from analysis, because at times you can do analysis of a situation and you find that actually you should not even have one candidate, even if others were ready to step down for him or her. There are factors which can actually lead you to deliberately field more than one candidate. When you apply your mind to that.
General, what would some of those factors be? Because I think now
yes.
There is general consensus
yes.
that one, the nation must, in one way or another,
yes.
get done with the NRM regime.
Yes.
And anything that may come in its semblance.
Yes.
And there is a thinking, again, that from at least the last election and the manner in which at least Buganda voted,
yes.
that the people who represent the realistic chance are the National Unity Platform through Bobi Wine.
Yes.
What would be so difficult about agreeing
yes.
to field Bobi Wine as the joint opposition candidate for
yes.
president, and with support coming from people like yourself, especially for the base you represent?
Yes.
Because you represent a base of voters in this country. Actually, when you hear them talk,
yes.
they say things like, if I'm not voting for General Muntu, either I would rather not vote,
yes.
or I would rather vote Museveni.
Yes.
I've had people say that.
Yes.
So wouldn't it be helpful to get somebody who has a realistic chance of beating the incumbent in an election, yes. field them and put your entire weight of support behind them, as you've done in the past with Dr. Besigye?
Yes.
What in the previous elections, for instance, and in the aftermath of that, what has been so difficult or disturbed or complicated about having that conversation so that we can prepare the nation for it early?
One, many of the people who do analysis seem to not put into consideration the fact that even when actually, in reality, there has never been one candidate, that the voting population always rallies around one candidate, even when there is more than one.
Correct.
So I don't know why people end up throwing themselves in a spin because there is no one candidate, because eventually, anyway, they vote for one candidate. So why they pay more attention to that, to the extent that when there is failure to have one candidate, that the rest break down? I don't see the sense. I don't even see the logic. Because when you create a vehicle to fight against, an entrenched establishment, the sustenance of that vehicle and strengthening it further for a continued fight, to me, is the most critical factor, even more than the individual. Because eventually, anyway, people rally around one individual. But, two, people need to know people are influenced by different factors to support an individual candidate. True or not true? They are factors.
True, yeah.
They are factors. People also seem not to recognize that actually there are times when even if you have one candidate, that the candidate, for example, who steps aside cannot rally the people who were going to support him or her around the other. People seem not to recognize that. So how do you deal with that? Because they would have been influenced by certain factors, at times demographic, at times emotional, most times emotional, actually. Most times emotional.
Sadly.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But it's a fact. So when you are designing strategy, you need to recognize that. Two, you can have actually 2, 3 candidates if they are so well coordinated. If the sides are not driven, if the sides, most of the support base are not driven by emotion, they can literally act as if they were one. We have a problem of organizational concepts, how we interpret things. It's amazing why we just throw ourselves into so much.
We are in a panic.
You know? But a struggle is a process. We'll keep at it, because for me, I'm convinced that as time unfolds, eventually we will achieve victory. It's only at that point when people look back, and then whatever explanations they would not have understood, at that point they'll click. Because they will click because of the benefit, because of the advantage of hindsight. There are things you can't explain at some point, and people comprehend that, unfortunately. Politics not being a science where you add this you add this and this and you get that.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
There are many nuances at play, really.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it is at the center of our lives. It's at the core of our existence.
Yes, yes.
And yet it is not clear. It's not.
So what I hear you saying generally is that there are discussions to have a more comprehensive manner of achieving opposition unity, so to say, both prior, during and after the elections.
Yes.
But I'm also seeing that there are still a number of contradictions even within opposition actors that we need to harmonize, to be able to have the same message at least.
Well, I always people saying you should become one. There are even those who say break down the parties and become one.
Become one, yes.
And you get a sense that people are confusing oneness to mean unity. It doesn't mean that. Yes. People can be living in one house, but they're enemies, like enemies.
Yes.
You can be moving in one vehicle, but literally you are at each other's necks.
Yes.
But you can actually be moving in separate vehicles, but you are one, because you are focused on one common destination, and you're in constant communications. You even agree where you are going to stop, where you can have a refreshment, where you can, stretch yourselves. And you keep moving, you have a common objective, and you know what you're going to do when you reach where you are going to reach. Why? You're in separate vehicles, but hearts and minds are together. They're in unity. But people they're influenced more at the physical things, the things they see with their eyes. You can be, different formations, but you have a common objective. You communicate whatever you are going to be doing together. You apply it. You apply it in unison. Everything you do is in concert.
Yes.
Yes, you can do that. So it's the minds that the most critical thing. But maybe through practice, as people see more and more experiences and more examples, hopefully, people will learn lessons.
Okay. Thank you, General. I think we need to receive some calls. The studio can let us know if we have some calls. Again, our call numbers are 0700 999 054, 0791 146762, 0700 999 054, 0791 146762. If we receive some calls, we'll be able to take them. But as we wait, there are some comments from social media. Generally, there are some people whose comments have come in. I see Mtoto wa Uganda on X saying Mugisha Muntu is calm and capable, given his experience in the military too, but it is ambition driving him, nothing else. Why didn't he stay and change NRM? He wanted to be the boss. Sadly, we may lose his ideas because it's a slim chance of success. We have Patrick Nobleman on X saying, how can I be a flag bearer for the Alliance Party in Bukoli Central, Namayingo District? General, I think that question you can answer almost immediately. Namayingo District.
Okay, he needs to get in touch with our coordinator there, James Ouma.
James Ouma is the coordinator in Namayingo District.
Or if you have a phone of Honorable Dan Ogalo. Honorable Dan Ogalo is one of the eminent persons within the party, but coming from that district, he'll be able to connect you to the relevant offices. Okay,
Patrick Nobleman on X, please get in touch with John Ouma. James Ouma from Namayingo District, or the Honorable Dan Ogalo, who would be able to connect you. We'll be taking calls now. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Yes, hello.
Thank you. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you loud and clear. Please state your name and where you're calling
from. Yes,
I'm
in Sokoto.
Please go right ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I have an inquiry on the issue of different forces advancing the same adversary.
Yes, please go right ahead. Your name and your name, please.
Just like General Muntu had said, they can have different forces advancing the same adversary. My inquiry is, who will be controlling the communication between them, between the forces of change? And number two, if General Muntu is trusted with power, how will he be able to combat the insurgents, that is the ADF and the Al-Shabaab, whereby Ugandan troops are fighting in the nearby countries? Number three, how will General Muntu fight against corruption that is overwhelming the country? That's my question.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Would that be Josh Reloaded? Okay, I think that's also Josh Reloaded. He had already posted on Facebook asking the same question. How would General Muntu deal with the insurgent groups like ADF and Al-Shabaab, but also fighting against corruption?
On corruption.
General, could we just take a few more calls, then we answer the questions at once? If we have another caller online, we can take another call. All right, General Muntu, I think we can answer those questions. Two questions. How will you handle the communication in terms of different forces advancing against the same adversary? And if
the MOU that we signed, we have eight members in the Common Ground Council, and below it there will be a common elections bureau. And under it there would be different sub-departments, and one would be communications. And therefore they would be shaping the communications aspect of the joint force. And if there is any other that we work with in that regard, same. So that there is coordination. They see how to shape whatever messages that will be given out. And there are a number of technical people that will deploy in that area, and they'll be able to do that. On corruption, the most effective way that you fight corruption is first, you look for a team of men and women who have integrity. That's where you start from. And if there is a leader who is incorruptible and then puts around himself or herself a team of leaders who have the same inclination, who want to fight corruption, that's the best start.
General,
and,
I think
the techniques is that you also invest in the investigative organs of investigations like police, CID, and then you ensure you motivate them, you train them, you equip them. You do the same thing with prosecutions department. You empower the court systems. You purge all those areas of corrupt people. You ensure that those who are not corrupt are the ones who are in it. And then you lock up people through that process. You know, trial. You don't use any other route. And then once people know that the moment they are detected, that is a good investigative agency, they'll be thoroughly investigated. And the prosecutions department has got the best motivated professional prosecutors. They prosecute, and the judges are not corrupt, and they are able to deliver sentences. And people know they are going to end up in prison.
Thank you,
Once
General.
you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, others fear.
Thank you, General. I have to cut you short so that we can take a few calls online.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, please. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
I'm called Ivan. I'm calling from Kasanga.
Ivan from Kasangati, please ask your question.
First of all, I want to thank you for all the training in extreme point. Then my question is, hello?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Which process are they going to use in case they come on board, or the opposition parties? Which process are they going to use to select a flag bearer?
In case the political parties were to come on board.
The method we use is consensus. Consensus.
Yes.
Okay. The method that they use, according to General Muntu, is consensus building. But he will go deeper into that in the next question. We can take another caller online. Thank you so much, Ivan, for your question. In case we have another caller, we can take another caller online. But I can also see some comments from social media. Chiumulo Pauline on X says something concerning General. Unlike NUP, ANT seems to have given up on elites, especially those in Ugandan universities. This month, close to 15 students were erroneously suspended from Chambogo University, including the guild president and guild speaker. But the ANT has never made a statement. Is it just the retirement party? This is Chiumulo Pauline on X.
Well, unfortunately, we are not able to make comment on everything that happens under the sun in this country. Please, there are many things which happen. And those which come to our attention, we make comments. There are many times when we are drawn by, I don't think there's even any party which could be able to do that. So Mr. Chiumulo, if one thing bypasses us, don't make judgment based on one thing.
We have another caller online, I suppose. Yes, please.
Hello, how are you?
State your name and where you're calling from. Thank you for calling into the studio.
Yes, my name is Moses. I'm calling from within Kampala.
Yes, please.
And thank you for the program. General, we are grateful to have a man like you. I just have a few, maybe highlight a few things and maybe a few questions. Number one, I am very pleased that you were able to stand your ground when you're asked a question about forming one opposition, because I believe as much as we have people trying to overthrow, I don't know whether the word is overthrow, but remove the interim government, they do not all carry the same spirit to help our nation or to impact our nation. And in most cases, many people are not able to see through the facades that are presented by some of the people who are masquerading as opposition in the name of removing the government. But one thing that has stood out with you, General, is that your convictions have stayed true. They've stayed the same. And I think one of the challenges we have is most of the people that have not turned up or showed up on the polling station to vote are actually your supporters. And we have not voted in the name of it will not make a difference. So the biggest question we have for us is, as much as you have talked about the strategy of starting from down upwards, the person who is down is very unreasonable. You've also highlighted it, that they are swayed by 2,000 shillings, by 5,000 shillings, and they are going to change their mind on who they're going to vote. So for me, my question is, how do we influence people who are down the food chain, who are in the lowest part of the ecosystem, who do not really, I could say we cannot reason with them. And I think that is the biggest challenge, that the people, your supporters, the people who believe in you are the elite. The biggest part of the population which does the voting do not really care. They don't care about policies. They don't care they even don't know what is happening in this nation. So I don't know, General, what you have to say about that. For me, one of the things I believe would need in this nation is maybe when I look at that dilemma in our nation, I feel maybe we need to introduce like the way they vote in the US, where you find votes don't carry the same weight, because a person who can be swayed by 2,000 shillings should not have the same say as a person who genuinely feels for this nation. General, thank you very much. We love you. We are behind you. And we pray for you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Moses. Mr. Moses from Kampala.
Yeah, Moses, the unfortunate thing is that it's only the magnitude of what is given. Because while the people in the rural areas may be swayed by 2,000, then we have the leaders who are swayed by much more, but still who are swayed to go in the wrong direction. So that's where the dilemma is. Therefore, we can't give up. We cannot give up on the leaders, nor give up on the peasants. We must keep doing and disseminating, doing the right things and disseminating the correct information as a way of influencing people. Because there's a point when people are pushed the corner to the wall and they recognize that, you know what, this is unsustainable. And when they reach that point, they need to be hearing alternative voices. That's when people shift. That's how society changes. All societies change. Incidentally, all those countries that you see, whether it is Europe, whether it is in America, whether it is in China, even whichever system, by the way, is operational there, whether it's open democratic systems like the West, whether it is managed democratic processes like in the communist countries, China, Vietnam, and the rest, there are people who were focused on creating a particular end state, and they don't give up effort. They keep at it. And those countries were changed from being backward to the levels at which they are now. So there must be people who are resilient, who keep communicating constantly, continuously, relentlessly, until that point when people say enough is enough, and then they shift, like we have seen it happen. So we cannot give up on the people down there. There are factors which are influencing them to behave that way. There are also factors which are influencing the leaders to behave that way. But we can't give up because of them. Leaders never follow. Leaders lead. And what we are looking for as leaders, because if you look at what is happening basically in the country, it would be the best way of us all throwing in the towel and we just give up. But we cannot follow people who are acting in the manner in which they are acting because of how they are influenced by factors beyond their capability to manage. We are leaders. We have to keep leading until people turn around. It happens all the time, since creation. It's the type of leaders that we are looking for to operate at the different levels in different parts of the country. One thing that is for sure, the physical change will happen. I mean, General Museveni will get out of the seat one way or another. And then the second type of change, transforming a country, moving it from the mess in which it is, putting it on the right track. For both, it requires resilience. It requires leaders who don't follow. Because now, you can imagine, most of the people who went on the NRM tickets are not leaders. They are following where the masses are. But we are leaders. We know where we should be going. We know how to get there. Much as the people to whom what we are doing will actually benefit down the road. They don't understand that now. We can't follow them. We remain on track. And the time will come when they'll actually benefit from what we are doing. Whether any of us goes down, then the second one gets in. Like that, we keep building, we keep building, we keep building until we build a critical mass. And critical mass at the national level doesn't require thousands, just a few hundreds in a political organization, a few thousands at the district and sub-county level and parish. And then that party will be well equipped to shift through influence the balance of forces from where we are at now and put the country in the right direction in the event that they take power.
Thank you, General. I think we have a caller online. We'll take the call now.
There was another question which I didn't respond to earlier on. I think someone was asking about ADF and...
yes, the insurgents.
I'm hoping that this group that takes power, and I hope it will be us. If it is us, we have got the military experience and the skills and the understanding of strategy and tactics that need to be applied. But at the same time, there is an army which is being built. Fortunately for UPDF, it has many educated officers, many well-trained officers in terms of military skills.
General, we may need to take
and they've also been exposed. They've been fighting in many, many theaters. So what any party would do in the event that it is us is create an environment in which we professionalize the army, ensure that we leave room for the military command to conduct operations. Of course with guidance, more so when it is from a leader who also understands what warfare means, counterinsurgency warfare. So I wouldn't see that as a big challenge. The army would need to be well equipped. The army would need to be backed up in terms of logistical support. The army would need to be motivated. And also to ensure that the officers who are errant are put in line. And then the army becomes an efficient machine that can fight and win victories.
Thank you, General. There's a question on Twitter here on X. Is ANT as a party going to help candidates running on its ticket pay for the exorbitant nomination fees? We as the poor are locked out, yet we have ideas and can improve the quality of debate when elected to the August House. That is Derek Moganza on X.
We are hoping to do so. We are starting a fundraising effort to the citizenry, and we're hoping that the citizenry will come up and support that call so that we can get the resources to put behind the candidates that will be running at the different levels.
Thank you very much, General. I'll take that call as well. Please state your name and where you're calling from, and then go right ahead and ask your question.
Yes, good evening. My name is David Richard from Wakiso.
David from Wakiso.
I like to thank General for the tireless efforts to transform the country. However, there's something I want to note that it needs to note that politics is like 90% psychological and maybe 10% logical. So that's why the alliance is facing a big challenge. So sometimes it's good to note that we need to do more than explaining our ideas. There's also need to push some psychological influences. See, last time NRM was sparing buses of people to show that they have, where they have the conflict, that they have a lot of people. Those things, sometimes I'm seeing like they are necessary for psychological purposes because people don't want to be on the difficult side. So we need to get more things that can influence the population also psychologically, because those things are very important. I was imagining today, if you are explaining to a offshore support believer that, they want to make a better government, someone who can't even understand that he was created by God and just believing, how will he know a better government? So it is quite a difficult challenge that you can explain ideas, a few people will get the ideas, but there's a psychological bit of it that is where people will not understand ideas, they just want to follow whatever is popular. So it's important to raise ideas that will also influence psychologically the population. Thank you so much, however, for the tireless effort, and we will always do anything to support this effort because it is worth it.
Thank you very much, David from Wakiso.
Thank you.
The psychology behind the politics general, you seem to be ignoring it, and the population is saying you need to pay attention to that psychology too. Sometimes people, all they need is salt.
Yeah, but I would like to believe that they need salt all their lives. So the question is, do they want salt for just 1 week, or do they want it all the time in their lives? So we're just simply explaining to them that you don't even need to wait for someone to give you that salt. That we want to create an environment in which you make money to get salt and do whatever else you want to do. Is an example of a Chinese saying that rather than give a man fish, that teach them and equip them with the skills to fish. That's logical. That is so logical. I wouldn't understand even why people wouldn't know that. Yeah. Right now, there are people who deliberately, consciously, in a devious way, the regime has created an environment where people want to go to one human being to keep begging for fish. We are saying, no, don't go begging for fish. Change the status quo. Let people who have a different organizational philosophy get in. And that's the way we think ourselves. Create an environment, train people, give them the skills, equip them with the hooks. Any day they want to go fish, let them go to the river or the lake and get their own fish. Why not should they be going to one point to look, I'm going to get that fish anyway.
Yeah. But
and two, when they learn how to skip, they even go and capture or take, any size of fish
that they want.
Yes. But you see, the problem now, they go and give them this mukene.
General, the psychology of politics as well.
From their own money. Because the person giving that fish, that mukene,
okay.
He's not getting the money from his own pocket.
Let me take this call and then I'll build up on that. Thank you for calling in. Please state your name and where you're calling from.
So we should change the psychology of the people. We should not just let them remain.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Psychology.
I'm called Samuel from Manafa district.
Yes, Samuel
Eastern
from
Uganda.
Yes, please
Can
go
you
right
hear me?
ahead. Samuel, we can hear you loud and clear. Please ask your question.
My question is, I would like to ask the journal. We have some upcountry districts whereby our party has not yet sufficiently reached on the ground. Now my question is, what strategies are we going to use right now so that we go down on the grassroots? So for example, yesterday, as we saw, NRM were everywhere, and many people, they think maybe NRM is the final vote. So what strategies are we going to use so that we go to that common person on ground so that we make the party sufficient everywhere? Thank you very much, and greetings to General.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Samuel from Manafa.
Samuel, okay.
From Manafa.
Samuel, we incidentally already have a candidate for ANT in Manafa who is running for LC5, Ivan Mori. Samuel, if you live in Manafa, coordinate effort with other like-minded people. Look for candidates to run on LC3, level as chairpersons and the townships. I understand you have about 32 sub-counties. Reach out, because I also understand we already have about 4 people who are interested in running for LC3 chairpersons. So reach out, fill all those 32. There are young men there who want to shape the future. Get to them. Don't be scared by the numbers of NRM. First, are you satisfied with the status quo of service delivery? If you are not, and those who are not, get onto a party that you desire to join, that resonates with your values, that has got values which resonate yours, with objectives and principles that resonate yours, and then get on board. Encourage those who would want to change the status quo, even in the areas that we had not reached so far. There are a number of candidates who are coming up by themselves, who listen to these messages, who listen to messages direct on radio, on TVs, on social media, but also are linked to some of our colleagues who are spread all over the country. That's the best way that we can build. Take a stand. I mean, many of the young people who have finished university, some of them now are in their late 20s, early 30s. Sacrifice. Go there. Change society. The people are going to be exploited to a point where there will be an implosion in this country. Because someone before was talking about the numbers of NRM. Mubarak had 90+% a year before he was thrown out. Same thing with Bashir. I think he also had about 90+. So don't look at those numbers. There are people who are there simply to survive. I can tell you, those people who are putting on yellow, the day the NRM collapses, you look for them, you won't see them. That's what happened. What we need now is leaders. People who not bow to the status quo, to the powers that be, that want everybody to bow, to be humiliated as they do to many, and they don't care about them anyway. You know, we have to have leaders, one who recognize that dignity is a very, very critical thing in the existence of any human being on this planet. Because when you retain your dignity, whatever difficulties you find on the way, you reach a point of breakthrough, even in getting the material things of the world, which will help you in your needs and the needs of your family. Then you have 2 things. You have the material things, but you also have dignity. If you have material things, but you are so broken in your spirit, in your inner being, in my own estimation, you are operating almost at a level of being like, I don't know what to say. So when you have leaders who are so devious that they are broken a people, like our people have been broken on the lower level, at the leadership level, there must be counter effort to reverse that. And the moment this regime is out, Genome 7 is out, the painstaking effort of rebuilding our people, that's the most critical thing. The roads are important, power generation, power transmission, power distribution is important, so that power gets to people, gets to factories. It's important. Provision of clean drinking water, drugs in hospitals, well-paid public servants, teachers, and all other professionals. That's important. But the most important thing is the dignity of the people. That there are people whose self-sense, I mean the sense of worthiness. If you have a population that how will you even have a country develop? Because the extent of innovation, the extent of creativity of any human being is rooted in confidence in themselves, in the sense of worthiness that they do have. And if you have a people who are so broken that they are just simply looking on how to go and beg, how will the country be turned around? So we need people, one, who want to bend, who want to bow to the devious activities of these people who are run by, I don't think I should even go in that direction, but who are going to stand and become pillars of hope, pillars that can rejuvenate a people who are broken. It's a continuous, it's going to be a painstaking process, but the ultimate objective is to restore dignity to our people. We can't give up. So wherever you are, whatever spheres of influence you have, influence people to take a stand. It's nothing new. Don't be scared by what you see, how our society is. There are many societies that have been like this, but they've been turned around. History is rife with so many examples. Read. Those societies which turned around were turned around by leaders who don't allow themselves to bow to devious machinations, to people who don't care about people. Those leaders don't even have to be in millions. Many times they are few, but they must be there. And in Uganda, they are there. They're hiding in churches, they're hiding in mosques, they're hiding in their professions. They don't want to take a stand, they want to survive. But in the process, we are getting more and more closer to what we wouldn't desire to see happen in this country. If leaders who have capabilities of leading remain hiding wherever they are hiding, and we reach that unfortunate point where we could reach, like other societies where people have not decided to stand in the gap and turn around things in a peaceful way, we could have a problem down the road. And I don't see any reason why we should reach that point.
Thank you so much, General. The passionate plea of General Mugisha Muntu continues concerning how we can turn around the fortunes of our nation. The ultimate objective, in his own words, is to restore the dignity of our people. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this month's segment of the Ask Mugisha Muntu show. We thank you for your viewership, for those who called in, for those who gave comments on X, on Facebook, and all our social media platforms. We look forward to the next engagement. And until then, we ask that you do as you have been told, not as you have been doing previously. Invest in the parties that you support. Invest in the future of this nation, because that investment is worth it. From us to you, thank you, good evening, and God bless you.